Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So if you've been around for a while and you're looking at this for the first time, you'll notice that my channel name is not Tech Haberdashery anymore. I am rebranding for the year of 2023 and I am going with the name Polymatrix. This comes from an old sci-fi anime movie that is cyberpunk themed. I think it was my first exposure to the cyberpunk genre. So I decided to kind of co-opt the name for myself and use it for my YouTube channel. So it's something I've been contemplating for a while, for a few months, maybe half a year really. And I've had some pretty major changes lately with just kind of my life in general. And coming up in 2023, there's going to be more of those changes. And this channel has always purely been a hobby channel, and I plan to keep it that way. But with these channel changes, with these life changes that are coming up, I'm deciding to maybe step back away from reviewing and doing as much with hands-on work with the technology. And there's a couple of reasons behind that decision. But one of the focuses I would like to take up is commentary of the actual goings on of the tech industry and maybe even things of the world more broadly, not just tech. Although I do love tech, and I'm definitely going to focus this channel more on that. But in keeping with that idea, tech haberdashery is, well, it kind of railroads me into tech, one, and then two, it's 6 years into this now since I posted my first video on the Blue Studio C phone, or my first review, I should say. I think there's a lot of tech something channels out there. You know, you have TechSpurt or Tech Hut or Tech, I want to say TechMazing is one. It just doesn't separate my channel as an identity from all of the other channels that are out there. And there's nothing wrong with these other channels. When somebody says Polymatrix, I want them to think about me and the content on my channel. And I don't want to get them confused with another tech channel. There's also the problem that the name Tech Haberdashery is an annoying name. as I've gotten older and I've thought about it, I was like, well, it's really not a great name. I mean, a haberdasher is somebody who sells stuff. It's a very old school 19th century name for somebody who's a salesman. They don't sell anything, so it just doesn't fit. With that in mind, I think the rebranding is, well, I think it's about time, really, and 2023 is a great start to that. So the focus is going to be on the tech industry as a whole. I think, given my experience working in the technology field, working for government contractors, working with two other major corporations, Best Buy, Geek Squad, and Apple, within this space, I kind of have an idea, an ability to speak to what's going on within the industry, kind of from a 20,000 foot view, not super high up, not that 30,000 foot view where everything's kind of fuzzy, something with a little bit more focus and a little bit more detail. But since I'm not a major decision maker and I have no inside sources, obviously I'm not going to be giving you the kind of the in the trenches view of what's going on day to day within any of these companies. Somebody like Moore's Law is Dead, who has a lot of great insider sources, or Red Gaming Tech. These are both better channels if you're looking for rumors and kind of these really nitty gritty details and what's coming and what is and might not be coming. So I'm just going to give it from a higher view, hopefully with a little more speculation and commentary as to the thought processes behind some of the decisions that gets made by tech all over the world. And I have a major love for geopolitics as well, and I study it quite closely, namely the United States and the Asia region specifically, although I keep an eye on Europe obviously as well. Things like the GDPR and privacy movements and their regulations to change things with companies and forcing hardware changes, such as Apple moving from Lightning to USB-C, that kind of thing. So Europe is still an important player. I don't know it as well as I know others, but I would like to think that I can maybe provide some insight and some speculation. Maybe it's not worth anything, but the goal is to see how it works long term. I mean, this channel has always been a channel where I am taking best guesses and providing my experiences with technology. And when it comes to the commentary side of things, I hope to continue to do that and to not only learn new things from what I research, but also hopefully learn from you, the viewers. YouTube at this point is a type of social media, and it's the only social media that I have. So hopefully we will learn together and we will see how things change. So nobody is clairvoyant and can see the future, but I do enjoy the speculation game, and hopefully as we go through this year, it pans out as to something that I can refine and make better. But if not, then we'll see what we can work out and kind of adapt the channel to do different things. So with all of that being said, I want to be clear that I am not abandoning tech reviews. I'll slow it down a lot, and I know that 2022 was already a bit slow when it comes to tech reviews. But I've seriously been contemplating how I'm going to change my review process. When I started in 2017 with my first phone review, I had no real methodology in place for anything when it comes to reviews. It was just kind of how do I like this device? Is it good? Is it bad? In my opinion, and is it usable? Is it not usable? And I would kind of leave it up to others to decide if they thought it was good. And then as time has gone on, I've been a little bit more strict. You can see that with my last couple phone reviews. And the market is changing. The technology that goes into these phones is changing. There's a lot more AI assistance and neural processing or machine learning that is available, a lot of this kind of hardware that's on the phones now. So I'm also looking for ways to really test that and kind of get a metric of what devices are better than others when it comes to AI assisted tasks. With that in mind, I think I'm going to settle on a scoring system. That scoring system is going to be somewhat, I think, unorthodox. I think I'm going to go on a grading scale of a 1 to 4 star system. So the primary and just kind of, super short version of this is that it forces me to make a yes/no decision as to whether or not I would recommend a device. And I've chosen this for a number of reasons. I think it's pretty natural to want like a 10 star or 100 points grading scale, but I stepped away from those because it's not granular enough in my opinion. So if you look at something like on a 10-point scale, what's the major difference between a phone that's graded a 7 or an 8 or a 2 or a 3? In either case, the 7 or 8 score phone is still a really good phone, and a 2 or 3 score phone is still a really junky phone. So what's the benefit of having that 1 point of difference? It's not that granular of a science in my view. So naturally you would cut that in half. You might go to a 5-star system. And so in this kind of scenario, there's some benefit here in that a 3 out of 5 might be a perfectly fine average phone. It's not great, it's not terrible, it's totally usable day in, day out. But my issue with that is it allows me to not commit one way or another. So I can just kind of sit on the fence. And that's somewhat segmented or hampered a little bit by market segmentation and pricing as to what markets it's aimed for. Is it aimed for the US? Is it aimed for Asia Pacific? Is it aimed for just the India market? Is it aimed towards the EU or developing countries in Africa or South America? There's a lot of different things that go into that and might allow me to just go, well, this is a 3-star phone, and just walk away from it. But I don't want to do that. I am a United States citizen. I have a distinctly US perspective on this, so I'm going to try to assess it from that regard. I would still like to play with these kind of, rare phones that we don't get over here. But when I do, I still want to be able to say, yes, it's recommended, or no, it's not recommended, without that 3, that halfway mark, if you will. It kind of gives it a 50-50. I don't want to go there. So 3-star system is perfect, right? That would be the the next best thing. And I don't think so exactly. And it's got the same problem that the 10-star system has, but from the opposite end. While 10-star might be too granular, a 3-star system is not granular enough. So it's the opposite problem. I think that in a system where I'm going with 3 stars, a 2 out of 3 would be a perfectly fine phone, but it doesn't sound good to say. You're getting a 2 out of 3. Or there might still be glaring issues with the phone that might make it better than a 1-star phone, but not so bad that it deserves that score of a 1 out of 3. So it's just not granular enough. And I think that has brought me to a 4-star rating scale. And my thought process on it is this. Most things we deal with are average, right? Most of the cars you buy, most of the clothes you have, you might feel a certain affinity for it. Maybe you love it more or hate it more. There's certain brands you do or don't like, that kind of thing. So brand loyalty aside, sentimental values aside, looking at it just from a purely technical quality perspective, most things are average. And there are standouts on both ends. Really good, high quality, and really poor, low quality. And everything else falls somewhere in the middle, leaning more one way or the other. And that's why I've decided on a 4-star system. It allows me to say something is average, or it's above average, or it's really good quality without being that standout product. To maybe offer some anecdotal explanation, I'm going to use some of my own experiences. And I believe that our modern secular moment of history, we are strongly encouraged to react to our experiences. And not just strongly encouraged to react, but to react strongly. Maybe you've heard terms, saying this thing is the best or that is the worst thing ever. And it's either very positive or very negative, and it gets distilled down into these little brief moments of time where in that moment it's the best or the worst thing. And maybe that's not all terrible, but when we step back from that moment and we think back on it critically, was it really the best thing or the worst thing? Typically not. It was perfectly fine, or it was a little disappointing, but it's never really the worst thing. It's never really the best thing. But we communicate in such a way and we react with our emotions in such a way that it makes us, it's almost like we're deprived of excitement in some way. And so perhaps in hindsight, when we look back on these things, we see that they're perfectly fine, that we enjoyed doing them, or they were not really what we were hoping for, and we probably won't run out the door to go do it again. Either of these things is okay. But I don't think that we judge a lot of what we interact with using this kind of idea. And I think I want to do more of that here on my channel. So that gets to the heart of it. A sliding scale between 1 and 4, 1 being very poor quality, 4 being very high quality. The point is that every device makes compromises. But despite that, there's something really special or something that genuinely stands out about every device. Or the question is, what is it that makes that device stand out? Maybe it's worth that special honor, and maybe it's worth that, infamous dishonor of being a terrible product. To maybe let me give it another example here. I recently bought a used Pixel 6, and the Pixel 6 is very impressive. I think the AI assisted features on this phone allow it to stand out above any prior attempts that Google has made with the Pixels. But there's one kind of trick that always seems to come up with the Pixel 6 reviews. It either needs a more power efficient SoC or it needs a bigger battery. As luck would have it, the Pixel 7 appears to address these issues. It does have a better, more power efficient SoC, which seems to address the primary concern. And I've seen it described as a mostly iterative device, an excellent example of an evolutionary design or a great second generation product. But does it mean that it's meaningfully a better device? And I would say no. The Pixel 6 has voice transcription, magic eraser, call screening, call hold, hyperfast voice assistant, and more. It covers at least 90% of what the Pixel 7 covers. It's a great device, but it's not a perfect device. It's not as exceptional, but it is impressive. It's surely above average. Both are worth recommending. And in my grading scale, they would both be a 3-star phone. They would both get a score of 3 out of 4 overall. Hypothetically, I don't have a Pixel 7, so I'm speculating a little bit just to make a point. In keeping that in mind, say a Galaxy S21 series, which in terms of the raw computing power and the AI assistant features that Samsung uses on its S21 is roughly comparable to the Pixel 6, this too would also be a 3-star device if it was bought used, shall we say. Buying them new might still be a little too expensive, but still a recommendable device. It too would be a 3 out of 4. An example of something that might be a 2-star device is the iPhone SE3. Why a 2-star? Well, it's got a great SoC, but you're still making a lot of compromises for that device. It's an older design, it's a small battery, the screen on it is quite small, it's an older technology, it's not high refresh rate, it's a mono speaker, so there's a lot of negatives to the hardware of the iPhone SE3. So it's a 2-star device, even if it connects to Apple's ecosystem, which many would argue is a 4-star experience. It really is a standout ecosystem. I might even make that argument myself, but I'm still kind of going through my evolution into the Android ecosystem here. I've always kind of dabbled in it and always lived in iOS, but I think I'm actually, for 2023, I'm actually going to try to dive into Android so I can justify whether or not Apple's ecosystem is a 4-star experience or not. And with the changes that Apple's making to the advertising and data collection, maybe it's not a 4-star experience anymore. But that's a different topic for a different video. With that in mind, the SE3 is not a 3-star phone in a 4-star ecosystem. I'm not assessing Apple's ecosystem. I'm assessing the device itself. And I think that the iPhone SE2 is going to ultimately be a 2-star device. I mean, the camera's old. We just went through these topics, so I don't need to rehash them, but you understand my point. It's got one really good standout component, and that's the SoC. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the iPhone SE3 is going to be a great device for daily use for an average adult. Now, for a child, for a young teenager, maybe that's a different argument, but I'm not assessing devices for children. I'm assessing them as working adults. As a working adult, I should say. So keep that also in mind. Maybe that's a caveat I should put out there. And to keep in the iPhone ecosystem, maybe we can talk about some older used devices like an iPhone 11 or an iPhone 12. I would rate both of these as 3-star devices. They're good devices. They're definitely above average, but they're not exceptional. They have really good screen technology even today, even if the screen's a little lackluster and that it's 60 hertz still. There's great cameras, not bleeding edge cameras, but very good cameras. They both have stereo speakers, the Face ID unlock, the screen real estate for being such a relatively small device. These are all good things for an iPhone 11 or an iPhone 12. So these would also be 3-star devices, in my opinion. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of where I would put things. So to give a really bad example of something that we don't want, like the Galaxy A03s that I just tested late last year, that would definitely be a 1-star device overall. It's quite poor. So there's many reasons for that. Maybe Android 13 has fixed that. I read some things online that said the RAM Plus was the issue, but we're kind of getting a little off topic. You understand kind of generally broadly where I'm going. So with all of that being said, I really hope that this will help your understanding of how I plan to work with the channel going forward, doing speculation and commentary, and when I do review a device, the grading scale that I'm going to review it based on, and kind of the perspective I'm going to base it in. No channel, very few things I should say, stay the same throughout all of time, and my channel is no different. So I need to change with it. We're going to continue to change over 2023. I think we're going to see a lot of different things change in all of our lives with the way technology and new regulations are coming in, and then there's a war in Europe, and there's tensions in the East with the West and China. Who knows? And so it's going to be an interesting year. Many different challenges that we'll have to overcome, and I will try to adapt the channel to that as best I can. So with that being said, I'm going to keep praying for all of you. I look forward to interacting with all of you in 2023. So with that, I will say, go with Christ and stay humble, my friends.